Chuck Feeney is an anomaly. A billionaire who wants to have no money left by the time his life is over. And at 89, he's already reached his goal of becoming broke. Feeney once had a stake in one of the most successful companies in the world that at its peak was making more money per store than Apple does now. But Feeney wanted to make real big changes to the world before he left it. He's officially given away more than $8 billion, his entire fortune, leaving him and his wife a small apartment with some modest retirement savings. Here's the incredible true story of billionaire gone broke Chuck Feeney and the life-changing things he's done with his money. Chuck Feeney didn't come from wealth. He was born in 1931 in a small Irish-American community in New Jersey during the Great Depression. His mother, Madeline, was a volunteer Red Cross nurse at night, so it's easy to see where Chuck quickly developed his love for giving back. After graduating high school, he joined the Air Force and was stationed as a radio operator in Japan. After returning to the States, he used his right to a free education as a veteran to attend Cornell University, a big step up for a man from a blue-collar background. He started amassing a fortune when he co-founded airport retailer Duty Free Shoppers with Robert Miller in 1960. It started with them selling whiskey to U.S. Navymen stationed in Europe in the 1950s, and then rapidly expanded into selling luxury goods. But Feeney quickly learned he wasn't after massive wealth despite his recent success. In 1984, he secretly transferred his entire 38.75% stake in the company to his foundation that would later be called the Atlantic Philanthropies. At the time, very few knew that the company's impressive revenues weren't landing in Feeney's pockets, but rather the hands of a charity. To give you an idea of how successful his business was and how much he was really giving up, Duty Free Shoppers' annual average sales per square foot at their Waikiki store in 1988 was $43,561 when converted to today's dollars. In comparison, Apple stores on average today make about $5,650 per square foot. By the time the world found out that Feeney had transferred his stake in 1997, his cut of the business was expected to be worth more than $1.6 billion. But Feeney just didn't want the money. He thought there would be way better things to do with it than set himself up with a luxury lifestyle. He still lives in a modest San Francisco apartment to this day. He flies coach, and up until 2010, he didn't even want anyone to know his name. He also wears threadbare blazers, a $10 rubber Casio watch, and carries magazines and papers in a plastic shopping bag. As for cars, he only ever owned one, a used Jaguar. Chuck Feeney wasn't famous until he decided to make it known to the world that he was giving all of his money away, and he came out of anonymity for one reason: because he wanted other billionaires to do the same. So, where exactly did Feeney's fortune go, and what did it accomplish? Through his donations, Feeney has managed to change the world in massive ways, like bringing peace to Northern Ireland and modernizing Vietnam's healthcare system. But first, let's talk about the funding. Here's where all of Atlantic Philanthropies' money came from. A total of $2.9 billion from Feeney's stake in Duty Free Shoppers, $3.8 billion from Atlantic's investment income, and $2.5 billion from General Atlantic Partners, which Feeney also founded in 1980 to fund high-growth businesses. Feeney's always been passionate about education and the development of research and knowledge opportunities. He's given $3.7 billion to various education initiatives, including nearly $1 billion to his alma mater, Cornell. He also gave $177 million to Ireland to help them revamp their education system, making them a world-class leader in research and innovation. Feeney's philosophy for donating money is all about where the funds will make a significant impact immediately. He didn't want to donate money where it wouldn't be put to good use. This has resulted in him granting more than $870 million to human rights causes around the world, like $62 million to try and abolish capital punishment in the US, and $76 million in grants for grassroots campaigns supporting Obamacare. He's also given more than $700 million to fund healthcare improvements, including a $270 million grant to improve public healthcare in Vietnam, and $176 million to the Global Brain Health Institute, a partnership program between Trinity College in Dublin and the University of California in San Francisco. In total, he's given $2.5 billion worth of grants to help build over 1,000 buildings across 5 continents that invigorate communities and improve healthcare and education. One of Feeney's final gifts was building a high-tech campus for Cornell. He donated $350 million to the project on New York City's Roosevelt Island. It was accompanied by significant matching grants from the government and other donors, which was one of Feeney's goals, to use his money to encourage others to give as well. The impact of just this single project is phenomenal. The campus created about 20,000 short-term construction jobs and is expected to maintain 38,000 permanent jobs, create about 600 spin-off companies, and generate more than $23 billion in economic activity and $1.4 billion in tax revenues in the first 3 decades. In total, Feeney and Atlantic Philanthropies have given out 6,500 grants to nearly 2,500 recipients at an average of $1.2 million per grant, with an average of $216 million granted annually since 1982. That's a massive legacy to leave behind, and in Feeney's opinion, it's much more worth it than spending his billions on a high-tech smart house or super yacht, of which he could have had many if he decided to grow his billion-dollar fortune for himself. On September 14, 2020, Feeney officially completed his 4-decade mission and signed the documents to shutter Atlantic Philanthropies for good. While some may say he drained his fortune, he sees it as his money being used with more compassion for life than any other billionaire's fortune. And it will continue to do well for the world long after he's gone. Over the last 4 decades, Feeney has donated more than $8 billion to charities, universities, and foundations worldwide. He set aside only about $2 million for his and his wife's retirement. That means he's given away 375,000% more money than his current net worth. It's strange for a symbol of success to be the shuttering of a high-profile foundation, but that's exactly what Feeney's goal was. At its height, the Atlantic Philanthropies had 300+ employees and 10 global offices around the world. The 2020 closure date was set years ago as part of his long-term plan to make high-impact donations by setting a deadline to give away all his money. As a philanthropist, he pioneered the idea of giving while living, which is to spend most of one's fortune on hands-on charity initiatives instead of simply funding and growing a foundation. In the process, he's inspired billionaires around the world like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. His work influenced the billionaire pair to start the Giving Pledge in 2010, a campaign to convince the world's wealthiest to give away at least half of their fortunes by the time they pass. Now, Chuck Feeney may not have a life full of the utmost luxury to look back on, but he does have incredible achievements to be proud of. When he looks back on his life, he doesn't have any regrets. But we're not sure if most billionaires would be willing to happily and confidently go broke in favor of helping the world. That's what makes Chuck Feeney an extraordinary man. Chuck Feeney's work will continue despite him having given away his fortune. 211 billionaires have signed the Giving Pledge as of 2020, with about $600 billion of funds pledged. We'll have to wait and see if any billionaires will donate until they go broke, but the impact one generous man has had on the entire world is incredible, and perhaps we'll see more of the world's ultra-wealthy follow in his footsteps.